with the Department of Energy. Prior to forming ATI and working with the tribe, I began my career as a contracts attorney in the United States Court of Federal Claims. The U.S. Court of Federal Claims is really the primary jurisdiction for all matters relating to issues with government contracts. I found the topic fascinating, and very early in my career moved to a government contracting firm in McLean, Virginia. Many of you may remember RSIS, Rodney Hunt and Ron Trowbridge. That's really where I cut my teeth, and then moved on to Energy Enterprise Solutions. Both companies were very fortunate to have strong involvement with the Department of Energy, and the contract that many of you currently know as CBOSS was a contract that we had won and operated really between 2003 and 2012. So I have a very strong understanding of the Department of Energy. I have worked very closely with the OSBDU office over the years. And I have to say personally, having worked with a lot of OSBDU offices throughout the federal agency, it is certainly one of the best in the US government. With that said, let me begin introductions to our guest speaker today, Ms. Tamara Miles. Ms. Miles is the Deputy Director of the Small Business Programs for the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization at the Department of Energy. She has been in this position since 2020, and I can assure you, having recently attended the DOE Small Business Expo in New Orleans, she is dedicated to small business, small disadvantaged business, and making sure that organizations like yours have the ability to work very closely with the Department of Energy. Ms. Miles is also no stranger to the Department of Energy, having served previously with the Department of Energy Environmental Management Consulting Business Center. This organization oversees all of the acquisition associated with the cleanup sites throughout the country, cleanup sites like Savannah River, like Hanford, for example. So again, we are lucky to have her today, to have her experience, to have her background, and hopefully to provide a lot of great information as it relates to operating as a small business, as a small disadvantaged business within this environment. Before I ask Ms. Miles to begin her presentation, I would like to point out that the Department of Energy Office of Small Business has one of the best scorecards throughout the federal government. That organization most recently attained an A from the Small Business Administration. Those grades are based upon the agency's ability and willingness to meet its small business and small disadvantaged business contracting goals. I think the score was 117%. I'm not sure how that happens, but I know that this has been the case for the last 7 years. So congratulations to Ms. Miles. And Ms. Miles, I would ask that you take it away. And thank you so much for being here today.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. And thank you, Mr. Crutchfield, for that wonderful introduction. I'm having some challenges with my video. It says that the host, let's see, your video, because the host has stopped it. So if there's a way that you all could enable my video, I will be happy to turn that on. But while that is being done, I will go ahead and get started.
If you'd like to try, you should be able to now.
Okay. All right, there we go. Thank you very much. So again, good afternoon, or actually good morning. It's still morning. Good morning to everyone. It certainly is a pleasure to be with you this morning to provide an overview of the U.S. Department of Energy and how to do business with us. You know, it's great to see so many on here. I did review the audience, or in terms of their registrations, and I see that there are businesses at various levels of experience. And so I'm going to kind of provide doing business with DOE one-on-one. Some of it you may be familiar with, some of it may be too far in the weeds, but for some it may be very helpful. And then of course, this is just a start of a conversation with the department, and particularly the OSTABU, the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, because from this meeting, we would certainly like for you to follow up with us and give us an opportunity to speak with you one-on-one. But with that, we'll go ahead and get started into the overview slide. And I'll kind of just talk about what we're going to discuss here. I think we have the full hour. I won't take the full hour to get through these slides, but we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. But we'll start with providing an overview of the agency in terms of its history and its mission, how we're structured, where we're located, get into a bit about the budget, and then we'll turn to more focus on the OSTABU and what we do within the OSTABU, and how we partner with folks across the agency to achieve the small business goals. And as Mr. Crutchfield noted earlier in the introduction, DOE is doing very well in terms of the utilization of small business, and I will talk more about that in those slides. And then we'll get into the crux of the presentation, which is going over how to do business with the department. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So in terms of our history and our mission, it is to ensure America's security and prosperity by addressing its energy, environmental, and nuclear challenges through transformative science and technical solutions. The Department of Energy is a pretty diverse agency within the federal government. Some would say it's one of the most diverse in government in terms of our mission, our varied missions. The agency was created in 1977, but it traces its roots back to the Manhattan Project, which is, of course, the project for the development of the atomic bomb during World War II. There have been lots of different energy-related programs that were previously a part of other federal agencies that has consolidated into energy, hence my reference to we're a very diverse agency in terms of the different program offices. We've got science and innovation, nuclear security, as well as our edict for management and operational excellence. The department is also very much growing in terms of its scope, in particular due to some recent legislation, one being the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. The bill, it is bringing, tens of billions of dollars into the department over the next 10 years. 60 additional program offices are being set up as a result of bill. Not only bill, but there's other recent legislation like the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act is bringing lots of more funds within the department, really building that clean energy ecosystem within DOE and across the nation. Next slide, please. The next slide here is basically just a graphic of, where DOE and NNSA sites are located. NNSA is a semi-autonomous agency within the Department of Energy. NNSA draws a lot in terms of mission, nuclear security and safety, but also it is the program that has the largest budget within energy. And we'll go to the next slide. So this is very much an eye chart, and where it says organization chart, Department of Energy, that is a hyperlink. So when you get a copy of these slides, you can click on it and you can, really see the agency in terms of its org structure. But just by looking at it, you can see with a number of boxes that it's just, there's a lot of different program offices. And as I said before, there'll be many more boxes that'll be on that chart, over the course of the next 10 years as new programs are being set up in clean energy space. But right now we are led by the Honorable Jennifer Granholm as the secretary. We also refer to that position as S1. And then there are 3 undersecretaries that support S1. The first undersecretary is under NNSA. The second one is under the Office of Science and Innovation. And that's where many of the national labs are. There are national labs also under NNSA, but there's another chart that I'll get into where those are. And then finally, there's the Undersecretary for Infrastructure. And under that undersecretary are where a lot of the new program offices are being developed or stood up is under infrastructure. And then if you go all the way over to the right, and you see about 10 to 12 boxes, those are all staff offices for the most part in terms of supporting the operational activities, the program offices. And OSTABU is among those on the staff offices. And as you can see from the chart, being one of the staff offices that support all of DOE programs, we are a direct report to the Secretary's office. So our director, Ron Pierce, his boss is, S2, which is the Deputy Secretary, David Turk. And so we have direct access to the highest levels of the department where we sit in the OSTABU. Next slide, please. So in terms of our budget, annually, in terms of a procurement budget, it's about 40 to $45 billion a year in terms of the procurement budget. And year over year, we typically kind of fluctuate between the second or the third largest procurement budget in all of the federal government behind the Department of Defense. And that, 40 to $45 billion is again, just procurement, which is contracts. There are, billions of dollars that are also spent for financial assistance, grants and cooperative agreements, loan guarantees that are going out from the department. But we are graded in terms of our small business participation from the Small Business Administration just on our procurement spend and how that is going to small business. But as far as that billions of dollars and how that is, broken up to the major program offices, as you can see from the pie chart there, NNSA represents about half of the spending within energy. The next largest program is the Office of Environmental Management. That's the office that I used to, that I came from. I was a procurement director at one of the field sites for EM. That has a very big mission to clean up the legacy of nuclear weapons production across the country prior to the Cold War. So there's a lot of opportunity within EM for small business. The next largest block of funds is going to the Office of Science. And that's where, like, as I said before, many of our national labs are, and there are many subcontracting opportunities within science. The next block is energy, and that's kind of a catch-all for a lot of the new programs that are coming within the department. I would say, as you see this pie chart in the coming years, that energy block will grow in terms of the clean energy space for the department. And if we had this pie chart and it was showing financial assistance spend in terms of grants and cooperative agreements, I would certainly say that energy would probably be the largest of the pie when it comes to distribution of grants and the like. So with that, we'll go to the next slide. So now we'll turn the attention to the OSTABU. I have been with the OSTABU for about 2 years now, and I am really excited in the direction that the office is heading. We have got a very charismatic leader in Ron Pierce, and we are really pushing the envelope in terms of our mission to maximize small business opportunity. Mr. Crutchfield mentioned our annual Small Business Forum and Expo that just occurred in New Orleans last month. We had brought that expo back after a 4-year hiatus due to the pandemic, and it was a fantastic event. More than 1,200 folks were there, and we've just gotten a lot of really positive feedback in terms of the opportunity that it provided to small businesses wanting to work with the department. So, we're definitely committed to being an asset, to small businesses, being your small business advocate, building bridges, and leading you to those bridges to the program offices where buying is being done. The OSTABU does not award contracts, but we are a facilitator to those program and contracting offices that are for small business. So our commitment is to, outreach and training like we're doing here today, delivering useful information, building relationships both internally and externally. And then, of course, promulgating best practices in small business program management across the department and the federal government. Next slide. In terms of, opportunity for small business, DOE is certainly very much committed to the federal-wide initiatives to diversify and to make more resilient the DOE supplier base. And in those efforts to maximize small business opportunity to include small businesses in underserved communities, we are really creating value and opportunity for small business. 1 in 4 procurement dollars for DOE is going to small business. So that's 25% of spend is going to small business, and that is including both prime contracts that DOE has awarded, as well as subcontracts that our major contractors have awarded. The most recent scorecard that has been posted is FY22. And we are proud to say that we did earn an A grade from the Small Business Administration for our small business achievements. Our goal was 14% of prime spend was to go to small business, and we achieved, I believe it was around 21% of spend went to small business from a prime standpoint. And then I must say that we are unique at DOE in terms of how our prime spend is calculated. DOE is the only federal agency that has management and operating contracts, M&Os, and they're like a quasi government entity. It's an extension of DOE. And so all of the subcontracts that are first tier subcontracts awarded to small business, it counts towards our prime contracts. So that funding that's coming through the M&Os really does allow us to meet our prime contracting goals. And then we also have a subcontracting goal, 49% for FY22. The same is true for FY23, 49% for subcontracting, and we made that goal as well. I think we just made the subcontracting goal. It was the goal for last year was 49%, and we achieved just under 50. I think it was 49.7. So we did achieve the highest spending that we have done with small business in FY22. $10.7 billion went to small business for both prime and subcontracting. As far as the breakdown for small disadvantaged businesses, which includes the 8A program, the goal was 5%. We achieved 5.6%. And we fell short, unfortunately, for the other socioeconomic programs for prime. WASB, Service Disabled Veteran Owned, and HUBZone. We didn't meet those goals. The 5% for WASB, the 3% and for veterans and HUBZone, but certainly billions of dollars did go to those socioeconomic categories, considering the $10.7 billion that was awarded. So as far as FY23 is concerned, our prime goal for this year is 17%. We are tracking to meet that goal, as well as the subcontracting goal of 49%. And again, when you get the slides, that individual scorecard at sba.gov. That's a hyperlink, and that will take you to the scorecards for every federal agency. Next slide, please. So in terms of the operating environment for DOE, I will say that, it can be a bit challenging to navigate, the Department of Energy in terms of working with us, because, it is a very diverse in terms of our missions, as I mentioned, but it's also decentralized in terms of our business model. And we've got a lot of complex requirements. And so it really does require some diligence and some precision and patience to work with the department. We've got two senior procurement executives, one for DOE, Mr. John Bashista, and then another senior procurement executive that represents the NNSA side of the house, Mr. BJ Quigley. Under the SPEs, there are 14 different heads of contracting activities. We've got strategically placed small business program managers all across the country at the various programs. That 80 plus represents federal and major contractor small business program managers. There are over 20 different acquisition forecasts, so there's lots of places to go to see what opportunities are coming up. I will talk about our efforts to try to streamline that in a couple of slides. Many different major, contracts across the platform, and sometimes, especially when you are going after some of the larger contracts, the cost of entry can be pretty high in terms of the cost of proposals. But, I certainly, would recommend. And depending on the size of your business, that you would come in, initially through subcontracting, which is less onerous, but we'll get more into that in the upcoming slides. Next one, please. So how do we procure? What are the different, ways that you could, earn a contract with the department? Of course, we do full and open competitions. So these are unrestricted, where both small and large businesses can compete for the effort. We try to minimize, as much as possible, these full and open competitions. DOE does have a small business first policy. So of course, the FAR requires market research. So we are doing detailed market research, usually issuing a request for information to industry. To see if there are 2 or more small businesses that could do the work. And when there is, we set it aside. But as I noted before, some of our requirements are really large and really complex. And so it does prevent us setting, many of the larger contracts aside, but there are still many opportunities for set-asides. And so we do have a small business set-asides when market research allows us to do so. There are some, sole source, acquisitions that we do, in particular under the 8A program. We can do sole source acquisitions. And then, of course, those that are justified for some type of competitive, where we can't, for one reason or another, compete something, then there are justifications for other than full and open competition with Joe Fox or JNAs that are developed. Many opportunities for simplified acquisitions. There's a big focus on some of the larger contracts within the department, but of course, like any other federal agency, we're buying everything from soup to nuts. So there are a lot of smaller opportunities, and we do use simplified acquisition procedures when we buy those items, some of which we use GSA schedules. There is a benefit, of course, to using GSA schedules in terms of the volume pricing and the streamlined lead times to award. So we do award task orders from GSA schedules. For efficiencies, the same is true for some of our DOE contract vehicles like DOE Pass, that Mr. Crutchfield mentioned earlier, where we have aggregated spend for common goods and services that many sites are using, and we consolidated into a single BPA, and that provides pricing as well as lead time to award efficiencies. Unsolicited proposals. We do have a program that's managed out of the National Energy Technology Lab, NETL, in Pennsylvania, where if you have an idea that you think would benefit the department, you can submit an unsolicited proposal, and that proposal, depending on the topic area, would be forwarded to the most relevant program office for consideration for funding. And then, of course, funding opportunity announcements, FOAs, those are the announcements for financial assistance. So grants and cooperative agreements, or instead of RFPs, they're called FOAs, funding opportunity announcement. There's a lot of money, as I noted, that is coming through FOAs. Yet another opportunity to get work with the department or funding from the department are prize competitions. Prize competitions have been around for a very long time. Their authority is the America Competes Act. My understanding is that the design for the White House many, many years ago was through this America Competes Act with prize competitions. And DOE has some of those currently as well. I believe there are probably 40 different prize competitions that are going on right now. We did take part in the EPIC prize competition with the Office of Technology Transitions, and that competition culminated at the DOE Forum and Expo, Small Business Forum and Expo that I mentioned that happened last month. Basically, we had what we were calling informally as DOE's first Shark Tank. If you are familiar with that show, we called it the Gator Swamp. And so under that prize competition, 8 different startups pitched an idea in front of the whole crowd at the expo that they had in clean energy space. And 5 of the companies were awarded funding to further advance their ideas. So that was really exciting, and a great display of how prize competitions can foster relationships with the Department of Energy. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned before, DOE buys everything from soup to nuts, but this is our top 10 areas of spend for small business. Remediation services is the Office of Environmental Management, EM, line of business, and so there's a lot of small business supporting in that area. Engineering services, facility support, various aspects of IT and computers, administrative management, and consulting support across the board, some construction and R&D as well. So these are the top areas for FY22. This shifts, from year to year, but these categories are pretty much staples on the top 10 list. But again, this is just the top areas, but there are many more areas where you can certainly get involved. Next slide, please. So talked about all the ways that you can, work with departments. So where do you find all the opportunities? And I mentioned, there are many different forecasts or places to go. And this slide kind of gives you an indication of that too. And so I'm not going to go through all of these, but I do want to point out that the first one there, the DOE acquisition forecast. We do have a forecast of opportunities for prime contracts with the department, and it's on that website there. You can click on that once you get the slides. So it basically allows you to, and if you go to the next slide, I think it is, it'll be a picture of what I guess the next one after that. Yeah, this one. So this is basically a picture of what our acquisition forecast currently looks like. And so you can filter this spreadsheet to what it is that you're looking for. So if you're looking for just for WASB opportunities, you're a woman-owned small business, and when you want to know if there are any opportunities set aside for women-owned, or in this case, this one is showing opportunities that are set aside for service disabled veteran-owned. So you can sort by the set aside type, you can sort by the NAICS code, so you can kind of hone in on your experience. So there's a multitude of ways to filter that spreadsheet to identify opportunities. I will say that this is an area where we are really looking to improve. We have a working group that has been established to consolidate the DOE forecast so that it would be basically one stop, and you can search for all opportunities across all the program offices, but also the financial assistance opportunities that would be in one system too. So if you wanted a grant, you wanted funding in a certain area, you could search a single forecast that would identify that. And then what's more is that we are looking to also consolidate into a single platform subcontracting opportunities. And so that would be that it's a heavy lift, but we're definitely moving forward, I think, at a very nice clip in terms of making this happen. We're looking to award a contract before the end of the FY for a small business to develop this platform, and we're probably about 18 months out from deploying it. So be on the lookout for that. We do hope to make it easier to identify opportunities by centralizing the search feature. If you could go back one slide, I wanted to just talk a little bit more about this forecast page. So this page here that you see on the screen provides a link to that spreadsheet that I just kind of provided a sample of, but you can also see that our forecast page right now has links to all of our major contractors. Those are the hyperlinks in those bulleted items on that list. So you can go to all of our major contractor websites. These are the M&Os and other facility management contractors. Click on their link. It'll take you to their website and their procurement pages, and you can see opportunities that they have, subcontracting opportunities. I will say that, you know, if you want to do business with Entergy, you know, the most bang for your buck is going to be pursuing subcontracting opportunities. 80% of small business spend for Entergy is through subcontracting. So if you're following the money, and I recommend that you do, you will certainly be going after subcontracting opportunities at our major facility management and M&O contractor sites. You can go ahead and skip to a couple of slides. Yeah, this one. So, of course, you know, we try to make sure our forecast is up to date as possible. Some things might not hit the forecast right away. And so certainly you can go to sam.gov and search for opportunities that way as well. So just wanted to make you aware of that sam.gov is certainly provides comprehensive information in terms of opportunities to support the department. Some of our M&Os use sam.gov to post opportunities, but for the most part, you know, they have their own platforms, and you have to register as a vendor in their platform to get, you know, notices or access to their opportunity portals. Next slide, please. So again, this slide is just more focused on the subcontracting opportunities, and I've tried to foot-stomp that throughout the presentation, that subcontracting is where the money is for small business within Entergy. All of our major prime contractors have requirements to utilize small business in terms of percentages of spend. These things are very heavily reviewed and scrutinized, not only by the OSTBU, but program offices, in terms of making sure that their small business goals are being achieved under the contract. There's a listing of all of our prime contractors on this slide. There's a hyperlink there to the right, and you'll see all of the major contracts, points of contact, and links to their websites on that page. Another arm of opportunity to support DOE through subcontracting is at the Supply Chain Management Center, the SCMC. So, I kind of think of this entity as like DOE's own GSA, so they've got contracts or commodity agreements for goods and services that they are aggregating spend to put together. SCMC, supports, provides acquisition tools and resources to the NNSA conglomerate of M&Os, as well as the EM group of major contractors. So NNSA primes and EM primes leverage the infrastructure at the SCMC to buy goods and services, and there are requirements under those contracts to push spend through the SCMC. And when you what buying from SCMC means, if you're a vendor under their databases and providing goods and services, you're servicing all of those EM and NNSA sites potentially. So certainly I would recommend that you would check out the Supply Chain Management Center and register in their vendor database and see what opportunities you can glean from there that would enable you to support multiple sites at once. Not on this slide, but there's another entity that is similarly situated within energy, and it's called the ICPT, the Integrated Contractor Purchasing Team. And so it's much like the SCMC in terms of their focus and their services, but they have the commodity agreements and the sourcing tools that support Office of Science M&Os. So we can, if you're interested in supporting the Office of Science and want to learn more about the Integrated Contractor Purchasing Team, you can certainly follow up with my office on that, and we'll need to update the slide to make sure we have that captured. But as I noted, to support these major contractors, you really do need to register to get within their database, and that's found on their procurement pages. Another end to supporting these major contractors is to contact the local small business program manager. And on the our OSTABU website, we have the small business program manager directory, and it's organized by site. And so whatever site that you're looking to support across the country, there's a small business program manager that has been identified, and you can reach out to them to seek information about opportunities. And I often offer, that when you're contacting one of our field SBPMs, you're welcome to copy the OSTABU on those requests so that we are aware of the engagement. Next slide, please. So this is just a graphic of the major contractor, sites in terms of the M&Os, the managing and operating contractors. The ones that are in red, those are the Office of Science laboratories. And the ones that are in blue, they're either the NNSA or nuclear energy or fossil energy, or even EM has M&Os as well, and those are depicted in the blue. But so this is just a representation that you can see that there are national labs really all across the country, and like I said before, a significant amount of spend is going through these laboratories that we often refer to as the crown jewel of the United States. Many Nobel Prize winning projects and scientists have come from our national labs. Next slide, please. So this is just an example. I had said before that, subcontracting opportunities, you have to register. Sandia National Lab is in Albuquerque. It's our largest of the labs in terms of budget. It's an NNSA lab. And you see here, this is just a picture of their supplier portal and showing that you have to register. And then the next slide is just a sample, I believe, of how you can search for opportunities within their site. So you see Sandia Business Opportunities website. So definitely look into each of the labs that you may be interested in supporting and register for their database. Next slide, please. Another way to get opportunity within the department is through the Mentor Protege program, MPP. So this MPP program, it's managed out of the OSTABU. And what it is an incubator program to work with the department. You know, it's through subcontracting. So in DOE regulation, in the DEER, the DOE acquisition regulation, it's policy that our large contractors, our M&Os and facility management contractors support the MPP program. And some of our program offices have taken the additional step to make it an actual requirement in their contractors and their contracts that MPP Mentor Protege agreements be established within the life of the contract. So it's definitely something to look into. There are some eligibility, criteria in terms of serving as a protege, supporting one of the major contractors. But it's definitely a way to get experience and be mentored. There's training and development and actual field work that you can do to support the department, and any subcontract that a small business under MPP is, that they're awarded to support a project, they're non-competitive subcontracts. So for more information on MPP, you can click on that link. There's a nice video that does some more explaining about DOE's MPP. That is, of course, distinguished from SBA's Mentor Protege program. So where DOE's MPP is focused on subcontracting opportunities, and it's established post-award of the prime contract. SBA's Mentor Protege program is, of course, when you're going after prime contracts and you develop a joint venture with a large business, and you submit bids as a joint venture for federal requirements. So, but both very great programs. Certainly, recommend looking into both of those programs in terms of supporting DOE with our program, and then SBA's MPP is, of course, you're able to develop these joint ventures to go after work across government. Next slide, please. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through each of these items because I think we want to leave a little bit of time for questions. But really, the gist of this slide is, to be successful in, navigating, work with the department, you really need to do three things. You need to leverage resources. There are many resources to support you going after work with DOE and really any federal agency for that matter, engaging with SBA, their supply chain development centers. We got listed here, PTACs, Procurement Technical Assistance Centers. Of course, that has changed. Their name is now Apex Accelerators. They will help you to position yourself to support any federal agency. The Minority Business Development Agency for minority-owned businesses, they really help a lot in assisting MPEs being successful. MPP, different trade organizations, stakeholder groups, I think are very helpful in providing training and development and networking opportunities to go after work as a team. We have a small business toolbox on our OSTABU website. I highly recommend you going through that because it does provide you some insights and resources. And then, of course, the small business program managers, that link is on our website too. So, there are many resources to assist in working with the department, and highly recommend that, you're seeking those out. Making sure that you're prepared when you have an opportunity, do the research, do the work, figuring out, okay, what are we buying? Where are we buying it? What is aligned with your value proposition? And then methodically going after those things, making sure that you got the requisite credentials, certifications, whether you're going to go forward as a team to go after those things, but making sure that you're prepared. And then finally, targeting your effort. And what I mean by this is, pursuing work with DOE is not always something that you do with a broad brush, but you're precise. You know, you're looking at the opportunities and then making business decisions on the ones that you are best suited, you know, to compete for, to win. You know, it may be going after smaller dollar value actions first, subcontracting opportunities, and then making sure that when you do get an opportunity, that you put your best foot forward. And continuing to work with the federal government means that you've got good past performance. And so making sure that you're communicating well with with the government or one of our primes, and really building a solid past performance record. One other thing that I'll just mention before we move on in terms of targeting your efforts, highly recommend that you respond to requests for information, RFIs, that go out from the market research process. You know, I know from managing a contracting office that those are very important aspects of any acquisition, because that provides us the information to determine set-aside opportunities. And so if we aren't getting feedback from industry, small businesses in particular, the effort is going to go full and open. So contracting officers are combing through those responses along with the technical folks to ascertain capabilities so that those decisions can be made. And CEOs do like to set aside opportunities. So definitely provide thoughtful responses to RFIs. If there's questions that are being asked, answer each one of those questions. Don't just grab a summary sheet off the shelf and submit it. Those things aren't going to be reviewed. But when you provide a thoughtful, detailed response, those things are certainly needed, wanted, and reviewed. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that we have planned as far as outreach activities. Later this month, we're going to be in Albuquerque doing a collaborative event with the Sandia National Lab. That is an event that's in person, and it's limited to small businesses in that region, but I'm sure there will be information that will be posted about that event for follow-ups for folks across the country. We are planning an event with the Pacific Northwest National Lab, PNNL, an opportunity day, and that's going to be coming up, we believe, this fall at MPP Forum. Sandia National Laboratory is one of the sites that really lean forward in supporting MPP. And so we want to have a forum that brings mentors and proteges together to do some matchmaking. And so that is something that's planned in Albuquerque. I don't think that will occur until FY24. But certainly that's something to keep on your radar if you're interested in MPP, and more information will be forthcoming on that. And then we already have identified the city and the dates for our next Small Business Forum and Expo. And that is going to be in Minneapolis, Minnesota, next June, the 4th and the 5th. So please save the date for that. The two links at the bottom of the screen will provide you information on more events that OSTABU, will be participating in, but the events at the top, those are ones that we are hosting or co-hosting. But there are many other events where we're supporting other federal agencies or stakeholder organizations doing matchmaking or presentations, stuff like that. And then the other link is just for all federal agencies. There's the OSTABU Council website that's on the Acquisition Gateway, and that provides small business outreach events that all federal agencies are doing, and you can click on that link if you're interested in supporting other agencies. Next slide, please. So again, I'm not going to go through all these. These are just some of the links to different resources or tools, many of which that I've already referenced. The one that I didn't is alleged undue restrictions. And this is kind of one of the best kept secrets, and it really shouldn't be. So I often point it out when I have these discussions. If you see a solicitation that the department has sent out and you feel like it's unduly restricting competition for one reason or another, there is an avenue where you can try to get change, and that is through the OSTABU. We are required per the Small Business Act to ensure, maximum competition, and where a solicitation seems to be, that it could be improved in terms of opening up the aperture for small business, proposals. We get involved in it. If there's something specific in there, like for example, we've seen some where for the past performance evaluation criteria, it was stated that, for you to have relevant, past performance, the size of past projects had to be a certain dollar amount, and the dollar amount being really high, for example. And so we have been able to work with program offices to clarify those types of requirements, and we don't get many of them a year, but whenever we do, I'm happy to say that we do move the needle. We are able to get change in those solicitations. So it is important that you bring those to our attention early, as soon as you see it, whether it's in a draft RFP or a final RFP. The sooner that you get it to us, the more time that we have to try to influence it in a way that supports small business. Not every item, do we think that does OSTABU think, okay, yeah, you're right, we're going to go ahead and see if we can get that change. But where there is something that we think, really could make a difference, and it makes sense, we do go after those things. And every time that we have been able to positively influence the outcome for small business. So, that's the link to when you have such a concern. Those concerns are submitted anonymous. We know who you are, but when we engage with the contracting office, they don't know the name of the small business that is, questioning the solicitation. We keep that under wraps. So do know that that's an avenue. I am going way over time. The next slide, I think, is just points of contact information. We do have points of contact for each of our socioeconomic small business programs. My contact information is there. The general mailbox, smallbusiness@hq.doe.gov. Please do reach out to us, provide us your capability statement. We can do a one-on-one consultation as a follow-up to this session. We're happy to speak with you. So please reach out to us, and I appreciate your time today. And I think we have a few minutes left for any questions that you have. And I'll turn it back over to you, Patricia.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Miles. And Firmage, if you're on, I know there are some questions, and we also had some early questions. So this is where the real fun begins. So participants, please stay on and get your questions answered. Firmage, over to you.
Thank you, Rena.
I will say that I kind of have a hard stop, at about 5 after. I'll go over 5 minutes, but I do have another engagement. So apologies for that, but go right ahead with the questions.
Thank you, Ms. Miles, and thank you very much for that briefing. It's extremely thorough. In fact, it's an excellent collection of information that in many ways I think has application to a lot of agencies, but having it all in place is really amazing. And I would encourage any of the participants here to make sure that when those slides are distributed, you run through so many of these links, because each link is loaded with tons of information. But I want to pull us back just for a moment and really start with some of the more fundamental building blocks. Clearly, this information has great application, but there's always the evolution of a small business, a small disadvantaged business. And it starts with registration in SAMS, and then having to decide, what am I going to put in my capabilities document? In many ways, it reminds me of the question I always used to get when I graduated from law school, and that was, well, what kind of law are you going to practice? And my standard answer was, well, any law that would get me hired. So as we move back to the capabilities perspective, what have you seen, Ms. Miles, and what would your recommendations be as it relates to a new organization's capability document, a medium-sized small businesses capabilities document, and so on?
Yeah, the capability statement is a very important document, and there's a lot of literature out there on what goes into a capability statement. If you go onto our small business toolbox on the OSTABU site, it provides you insight into that. I also know that Apex Accelerators, formerly the PTACs, they help a lot with assisting, small businesses in developing capability statements, especially those newly formed small businesses. So just wanted to put that out there. But in terms of, when we receive a capability statement, that's one of the first things in any engagement with a small business is that, especially if they're reaching out to us electronically, is, hey, please send us your capability statement, because that's the document that we're using to ascertain, what it is that you do and how may your body of work match with the program office, and then we start trying to do those matches. So it is an important document. As far as what would go in it, certainly, a summary of the company, any requisite, certifications that you have from SBA, it's super important to be in your capability statement. The different NAICS codes, the North American Industry Classification System, the industry that you work in, all of those NAICS codes that you support should be on your capability statement. And then some details on your body of work. Who are your clients, current clients? Whether it's federal or otherwise, it's important to have past performance or some level of experience with clients, contact information for those clients, or past performance CPARS scores for companies that are medium sized or that already have worked with the department, is to also provide an indication of what your past performance scores, CPAR scores, were for those different projects, so that you have a person has a good understanding of your body of work, how well you've been doing it, and what you're wanting to look into in terms of going forward. So very important documents. There are tools out there to help you to make sure that you've got the requisite information, but those are some of the things that I think are critical: certifications, NAICS codes, and your a summary of your current body of work.
Thank you very much. Very helpful. The next question, I'd like to focus on some of the programs you mentioned throughout your presentation. Obviously, a capabilities document is extremely important, but as experience is gained at the Department of Energy, I would think that it opens up a couple of paths. Path one is using or working for other agencies or other groups within the Department of Energy, whether it's the labs or the power administrations. And step two really would be, for a lot of the companies here today, really would be a focus on how you bring forward some of the extremely innovative technology or programs that you've developed. How do you bring those forward to the Department of Energy? So it's really two questions in one, but I know your time's limited and I wanted to see your thoughts or hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're already working with the department and you're wanting to expand, I think it's really important to, attend events like this, for one. This gives you an opportunity to network with other, companies that may have your similar, experience, but maybe more importantly, may have other experience where you guys could, come together and go after items. So, in the chat with this, providing your point of contact information and trying to build relationships, going to outreach events, that the department has, cross programs, or even the OSTABU. Those are great opportunities to build relationships with others and team. I think teaming is a very strategic and effective way to get work with the department, is to go after things as a team. So taking advantage of outreach events and trying to partner with others. In terms of, advancing innovative ideas, I mentioned the unsolicited proposal process. That's one way. If you have something new and it's not out, as a federal requirement through a solicitation, but you think there could be some use for it, there's certainly that NETL unsolicited proposal process. There's a prize competitions to see if your idea fits one of those different categories that are really leaning forward in terms of new technologies. We also have the Office of Technology Transition, OTT. That's where items may have been, successful commercially, that you're wanting to grow and expand into federal space. That's an office that I think would be important to get to know and see what programs they have. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways to, advance ideas. But certainly, if there's something in particular that you're thinking of, please do reach out to my office and we can take a look at the concept and see what program office we think you may have best traction with and set you up with, an introductory meeting with that office.
Thank you, Ms. Miles. I see that we are at the end of the session. I would ask Rena to jump back on for any closing remarks. Personally, I'd like to thank you again. It was a fantastic presentation, huge resource, all in one place. Thank you so much. Rena?
Thank you so much. And Ms. Miles, thank you for your time. I know you have to jump off, so I'll keep it short. Thank you for joining and spending your time with us today. And thank you to all our participants also for staying with us. Firmage, thank you for your time and for your expertise as well. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. My pleasure. Have a great day,
Thanks.
everyone.